Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. So the talks on the territory of Germany finished without any results, at least for the Russian Federation. Ukraine received some results, but as for Russia, we understand that they expected more, but they didn't get anything. Russia has not yet received any signals regarding the outcome of the negotiations on settling the Ukrainian conflict between the United States, Ukraine, and Europe. Stated Russian Presidential Press Secretary Dmitry Peskov. Key points: before organizing a new round of negotiations, Moscow and Washington need to review the results of the Berlin meeting. The European Union's participation in the Ukrainian settlement discussions does not bode well. So, as we understand, according to this statement, the Russians haven't received anything, no benefits, no progress, nothing, which means that most likely the war and the conflict in Ukraine will continue. And now, more precisely this morning, it has become clear why exactly the United States of America were in a hurry to finish the conflict in Ukraine as soon as possible. And according to information we have, something is brewing in the northern part of the Southern America. Most likely, the United States of America will start something on the territory of Venezuela, maybe even on the territory of Colombia. We know that during the previous night, the President of the United States of America made lots of very important statements about that. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before, until such time as they return to the United States of America all of the oil, land, and other assets they have previously stole from us. So the United States of America and the President of the United States of America made a very interesting statement, which means that something big is going to happen here. So that is why the President of States was trying to quit the Ukraine conflict as soon as possible. First, he wanted to settle the conflict peacefully, so he wanted to quit the conflict with the best cards ever, with the best configuration, and maybe to return to Ukraine and to the conflict in Ukraine probably in a year or 2 years when the situation in the Northern America finishes. But now we understand, and he understands that most likely he will not be able to do anything with this. So that is why most likely the United States of America will quit the Ukrainian conflict completely and will leave the European Union, Ukraine, and the Russian Federation one-on-one. But as for the European Union, we see that they're planning to continue supporting Ukraine. Yesterday, as a result of talks in Germany, the European countries promised Ukraine additional military package. At yesterday's Ramstein, 15 countries made new commitments to Ukraine, says Defense Minister Shmyhal. Germany will allocate 11.5 billion in 2026 to support Ukraine's defense. United Kingdom will strengthen Ukraine's air defense capabilities with 600 million pounds using frozen assets. Canada will give additional 30 million Canadian dollars, and many other countries will give more and more weapons and money to Ukraine with the purpose to support Ukraine for as long as possible. So this is the current situation. We wanted and we waited for some peaceful settlement of the conflict, but instead we see the situation when the European countries are sending more arms to Ukraine with the purpose to support Ukraine and its defense against the Russian Federation. So let's wait and see what is going to be next. Obviously, we see that 2026 is going to be very hot, because during the 2026, most likely the Russians will be able, or they will try to finish the battle for the rest of the Donetsk region, and the Russians most likely will approach the city of Zaporozhye. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 12 hours, during the previous night of Ukrainian time, lots of changes were recorded, especially in the western Zaporozhye direction. So this is the situation by the end of the 16th of December of 2025, and this is the 17th of December. The Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to improve their positions to the east of the settlement of Stepnogorsk, and today we received a video that confirms Russian control, or at least the presence presence of the Russian forces on the territory of this stronghold. The video was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area with FPV drones. One of the attacks took place exactly at this point, and based on this video, based on these reports, the previous reports, we adjusted the map. The Russians answered this dense network of the fortifications, and now they will try to develop their positions further in the northeastern direction. And of course, the Russians will continue offensive operation in the eastern direction with the purpose to attack the city of Orekhov from the west. As for the Huliaipole direction, as for the eastern Zaporozhye direction, during the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded. The pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that the battle for the city of Huliaipole is coming to its logical end. The Ukrainians are saying that they are not able to hold their positions on the territory of the city, and most likely in coming days, the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back completely from the territory of the city of Huliaipole. Currently, according to this map, according to this configuration of the map, the Ukrainians control just 30%, 35% of the city of Huliaipole. The rest is either in the gray zone or under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So the battle is finishing, and we believe that before the end of the 2025, the Russians will take the settlement under complete control and send the troops probably even earlier, maybe even this week. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, by the end of this week, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information. Furthermore, the Russians continue their offensive operation to the north of the city of Huliaipole in the triangle between the villages of Peshchana, Stapovskaya, and Andreevka. The Russians are trying to improve their positions, and the most important, the Russians are trying to improve their strong and to make stronger their position stronger on the Ukrainian side of the river of Gaichul. Probably this battle is even more important than the battle for the settlement of Huliaipole, because if Russians are able to take this territory under control and to dig in deeper, this is going to be a very powerful stronghold on the Ukrainian side of the river of Gaichul, and from these positions the Russians will be able to move in any direction. Basically, this is both the Zaporozhye and Dnipropetrovsk operational spaces, and they can move in any direction without any resistance from the Ukrainian side, or at least with a minimal resistance from the Ukrainian forces. Now let's talk about the Pokrovsk-Mirnograd territory. During the previous 12 hours, pro-Russian sources stated that there is no longer an organized line of defense of the Ukrainian armed forces in Dmitrov-Mirnograd, but pockets of resistance remain. So the Russians are trying to tell us that the battle for Mirnograd enters its final phase, when most likely in coming days, maybe 2-3 days, the settlement would be completely secured. We believe that by the end of this weekend, the President of the Russian Federation will visit another headquarters along the line of combat contact. He will visit some headquarters of the Group of Forces Center, or maybe the Group of Forces West, where the President of Russia will get another report, published report from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, Valery Gerasimov. During this report, most likely lots of interesting things will be revealed, especially about the city of Kupiansk, and probably during this report the Russians will announce complete control over the settlement of Mirnograd. So we believe that this is going to happen within the next 5 days, because from this configuration, very difficult to imagine how Ukrainians are able to control the situation in this area, how the Ukrainians are still able to do this. Another important video was published today from the area of the settlements by the name of Novoshakhova and Shakhova. So this is the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see how Ukrainians were conducting a reconnaissance operation, and as a result of reconnaissance operation, the Ukrainians managed to discover a huge convoy of Russian units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles were located along this road, and the Russians were preparing themselves before the beginning of another offensive operation. But when Ukrainians discovered this, let's say, concentration of forces, the Ukrainians began bombing and attacking this territory with all means they have. So the Russians were ambushed at this point, but this video confirms and tells us about several things. The first one is that the Russians managed to concentrate huge forces, and they have lots of forces in this area, and this territory is most likely under complete and strong control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, and most likely the Russians were planning to advance further in the northern direction, either in the direction of the settlement of Volne, or the Russians were planning to move further in the direction of Kucherov Yar, but the Russians were attacked by artillery and they were forced to stop their offensive operation. Now let's talk about the Sever-Sliman direction. During the previous 12 hours, small changes were recorded. The Russians improved their positions to the north of the settlement of Svyatopokrovsk. Just a small territory was taken by Russians according to pro-Ukrainian mappers, and the Russians managed to improve their positions in the area of the settlement of Huliaipole. Basically, the Russians managed to establish control over the TO 513 and the Ozerna-Huliaipole road interjection. So this territory was taken, and this stronghold was taken as well. We came to this conclusion based on this video published by pro-Ukrainian sources. Here we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russians in this area, and one of the episodes of attacks took place exactly at this point. So based on this video, we have adjusted the map. The Russians continue offensive and continue their assault operations on the villages of Dibrovo and Ozerna. Most likely in coming days we will receive additional updates from this territory. As for the Kupiansk direction, during the previous 12 hours, we received just one video from the most southern part of the city of Kupiansk, from this territory of the Sinkovskaya Street. This video was published by pro-Russian sources, and here we can see how Russians were attacking the armored forces of Ukraine in this area. As a result of attack, the Ukrainians suffered losses, and the Ukrainians were relocated at this point. Based on this video, we adjusted the map, the most southern parts. So these are the differences between the dates. So we start receiving more updates confirming that indeed the Ukrainians carry out a counter-offensive operation in this area, and that during the previous days the Ukrainians managed to improve their positions. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.